I request Rotarian Aditya Mehta to introduce the speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great privilege to introduce our speaker for today, a visionary leader in the world of advertising, theater, and films, who is today going to take us on a fascinating journey to explore the power of humor in advertising. He is the mastermind behind some of the most iconic advertising campaigns and is a creative genius who has left an indelible mark on industry. With a remarkable career spanning multiple fields, our guest speaker has achieved unparalleled success, earning numerous accolades, including 14 consecutive gold trophies for excellence in advertising. As a managing director of Publicis India and founder of advertising agencies in Kenya and Tanzania, he has revolutionized advertising landscape. His creative brilliance has crafted iconic campaigns for top brands like Amul, Parle, Tata Tea, and the list is endless. A multifaceted talent, he has also written and directed 33 English plays and has acted in multiple films across languages. His innovative approach has conceptualized and executed high-profile projects, including the Ab Ki Baar Modi Sarkar campaign. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the illustrious Mr. Bharat Dabholakar.
Very honestly, I didn't know I was so good. May I borrow this? I could make some copies and use it as a resume if I can. May I sit and talk? Yes. Because that will help me move the slides better. Okay, now before I begin, I must tell you that regardless of what you've heard, I'm an extremely nervous speaker. And I carry with me 2 slides which demonstrate how nervous I feel when I'm called to speak. The first one says, can that come on?
The previous one also.
No, previous one was just a monkey. So huh? But that doesn't go like that. I don't know how it works. It doesn't matter. No, that press play didn't work. Oh, no. No. Yeah. No, previous one just a monkey, so it didn't matter. Where's the next? Yeah. So this one says, if you doubt the concept of eternity, make a 5-minute speech. And the other one says, there are 2 times in life when you are totally alone, just before you die and just before you make a speech. So whenever I'm called to speak, this is how I feel. Now, I have 2 problems, which I must confess. One is that I have had very embarrassing situations when I'm called to speak at functions like this. Some years ago, a lady had come to invite me. I think she was the secretary of the Indo-American Society's Ladies Wing. I think it's called Indus or something. So she came and she said, Mr. Dabholakar, will you come and talk to our members on advertising? And very humbly I asked her, I said, why are you calling me? There are so many other people who are better than me in advertising, who are better speakers. Why don't you call one of them? I finished saying this, and that day I realized how ruthlessly honest women can get on your face. That lady looked at me straight in the eye and said, yes, Mr. Dabholakar, we know there are people who are better than you in advertising, who are better speakers, but most of them are out of town. And last minute, we can't get anybody good, so why don't you come this year? Next year, we'll call a better speaker. So, now that you've called me, I'll never ask you why me. I know why me. The second problem I have is I have spent over 30 years in advertising, and there's one concept that gets drilled into our head, and that's a concept of what we call target group. That means you must know who you are talking to. You could create the most brilliant campaign and address to a wrong audience, it doesn't work. And I have the same problem when I go and speak. I don't know who I'm speaking to. I don't know what your interests are. Normally, I tell people, let me not make a presentation. Can we just have a conversation? You ask me questions, then I'll try and answer. But even this target group and wrong people are learned in the wrong way. I used to do a play called Bottoms Up. The Bottoms Up was, some of you may have seen it. It had different skits, dances, and in between 2 skits, we used to have what we called a front curtain joke, so that people who weren't involved in the skits would come and do a 1-minute joke in the front of the curtain. So we had one front curtain joke, which was Ruby Patel and I think Tanaz Irani. They used to do this joke of a mother taking her daughter to the zoo. And they're walking around, and the mother says, are you having a good time, dear? Daughter says, lovely, mama, look at all those monkeys and giraffes and elephants. And the mother says, any questions for mummy? And the girl says, mummy, tell me, how do lions make love? And the mother looks very embarrassed and says, how do lions make love? I don't know, darling. All your father's friends are Rotarians. So we used to do this like for 200 shows. We always got laughter. We were doing at NCPA. We had a show there, full house, NCPA. And Ruby and Tanaz went out and did this joke, and there was pin drop silence. And I couldn't figure out what they had done wrong till the producer came running and said, are you crazy doing this joke here? This show is sponsored by the Lions Club of Nariman Point. So that day I realized how important it is to know who you are talking to, because it doesn't work otherwise. I don't think this works like this, somehow. I think, can we just go back to where we were? Yeah. Now, there is one picture I always carry, because normally when I'm called for a seminar, they always put me after lunch. Because I think that's the time when people have had food, they're feeling sleepy. So all the important speakers, they keep either before lunch or after 3:30, 4 o'clock. So I'm always given that slot after lunch. So to keep people awake, I always carry this picture with me. And this always gets attention of everybody. Now, this is not the real one. This is me. In a play, we used to do a play called Bottoms Up, the latest one, and I used to do a takeoff on Arnab Goswami show. And I was a compere, so I would announce that today we have, earlier we used to have high courts and supreme courts which decided what's good for the country. Now we have even a higher authority than that. That's Arnab Goswami, who decides what's good for the country. So I would call Arnab Goswami. Anant Mahadevan would come as Arnab Goswami. He would sit and generally talk and say, shut up, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, like the way Arnab does it. And end by saying, please do not talk while I'm interrupting. And then he would call Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi and Kejriwal, which gave me 2.5 minutes. So I would run inside, get dressed like this, and come out. And I had a pretty girl on my arms. And we had, as I walked in, Rahul Gandhi would ask Sonia, Mummy, who's that girl with Mr. Modi? And she would say, for the last 3 years, we've been hearing about the Gujarat model, Gujarat model. Who do you think the Gujarat model was? That's the Gujarat model. So this is how it works. Now, I'll tell you what, whenever I go and talk, not to an august audience like this, but in a management institute or a college, they always ask me, so tell us, how do you get ahead in life? Now, I don't have answers to that. What do you tell students, how do you get ahead in life? So I tell them things like, you must learn to take risks, you must be very daring, you must be very bold. So instead of just saying it, I started carrying slides with me. I had a picture with sitting with a lion. So I said, see, you must take risks in life. I had a picture with a python around my neck. So I said, this is how you must do. Then they would ask me, how do you get ahead in advertising? And I said, that's very simple. So I wouldn't say this to you guys here because... But there's one thing, since we're discussing advertising, there's one question that everybody keeps asking. Why do people make so much fuss about creativity? Advertising is a simple business. You tell us this is the product, this is how much it costs, this is where you can buy it from. So, and this is what it does. So why do you have seminars on creativity? Why are creative people called to talk and give lectures? And I said, it's very simple. Think of olden days. Think of a product that I have been thinking very fondly of in the recent times, shampoos. Now even this, actually I'll tell you, I misunderstood an advertising campaign. It said, all clear. I didn't realize what it meant, so I used that. But think of shampoos. In the olden days, if you wanted to buy shampoos and you went to a shop, there were 2 shampoos. So you could choose one of those. Today, if you go to a shop, you find that there are hundreds of shampoos. And there are different kinds of shampoos. There are shampoos for oily hair, shampoos for extra oily hair, shampoos for dry hair, shampoos for dry hair with dandruff, shampoos for dry hair with extra dandruff. When you're standing in that shop and you're worrying, what exactly have I got? Is it dry hair with dandruff or is it extra dry hair? You worry so much your hair starts falling. You don't need a shampoo. Besides which, today's shampoos are not normal shampoos. You have shampoos which have vitamins in it. Fruits, apples, oranges, herbs. I honestly feel that today's shampoos are so damn healthy. You're far better off drinking them rather than putting them on your head. But when you have this kind of a choice, then it's important that you create something that differentiates your product from the other. And that's where creativity comes. And creativity, I've seen this, I go as a judge in different schools. I find the most creative people are the younger kids. As they grow, they stop being creative. The younger kids always are the most creative. When you get older, you start thinking in terms of what would please the audiences, what should I do, and things like that. So creativity, they said, Einstein, they said it, I don't know if it's true. It said creativity is just intelligence having fun. That's what creativity is all about. And image matters. Today, all products are almost similar to each other. I'll give you an example. Coke and Pepsi. Coke and Pepsi spend millions of dollars in each country every year. In America, they did a blind test. You know what a blind test is? That means you don't show the brand name. You just pour both the products in a glass and say which one is which. And 67% people in America could not tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi. And 48% people could not tell the difference between Coke and Sprite in a blind test. And yet, they're spending millions of dollars. Why are they spending millions of dollars? Because they're creating an imagery for themselves. Pepsi says we are for the younger generation. So a person who wants to feel young would not go and buy a Coke. He would walk a mile to find a Pepsi shop and buy a Pepsi. And it's all image. There's no difference in this. And this is where creativity comes in. Now, how do you use this creativity? In the olden days, I always said creativity was very simple. It was like a boxing match. In a boxing match, there's you and there's your opponent. You know his weaknesses, you know his strength, you know how to fight him. Take an example of Sony Walkman. I don't know, all of you know what Sony Walkman was? It was a little box. You put a cassette inside and you heard music. The Sony Walkman had a competitor in Panasonic and Sharp. So they were watching each other. Sony would look at Panasonic and say, this is what they've done. This is how they've improved their product. I must do the same thing. So they were fighting with each other. So was Sharp. Or take Kodak Films. Kodak Films, their competition was Fuji Films and Agfa. So they kept on looking at Fuji and saying, Fuji is doing this, I must do something similar. Today, the competition is not like a boxing match. It's like a billiards table. In a billiards table, you hit this white ball, it will go and hit a yellow ball, that will go and hit the side, it will go a red ball, and the red ball will go into the hole. You don't know where your competition is coming from. That's all changed now. Let's take the same example. When Sony was looking at Panasonic, they weren't looking at a company called Apple. Apple was a computer company. How was Sony bothered with this? How was a Walkman bothered with Apple? They didn't realize that one day Apple would come with a little iPod, which is a tiny product, had more songs, and it wiped out Sony Walkman. You never find Sony Walkman anymore. When Kodak was looking at Agfa, they weren't looking at mobile companies. They didn't realize that every mobile phone has a camera. So unless you're a professional photographer, you don't need to buy Since how long haven't you bought a Kodak film? Since how long haven't you used a film with the 32 frames in a camera? Because you have your cameras on your phone. So these companies got wiped out because they could not see where the competition was coming from. And that's why in today's times, marketing and creativity is very important because you don't know where the competition is coming from. Let's go further. Look at this. This was a slide that you don't need because it's only meant for the students. But the point I make is I always say the only way you can stay ahead of competition is if you can innovate. Advertising is all about innovation because all products are now getting similar. I remember I launched Seat tires and they told us, Mr. Goenka told us that we have the kind of Italian technology that nobody else has. That's why our tires are the toughest tires. So we created a slogan called Born Tough and the symbol of a rhino. It worked at that time. Today, every tire company has the same product. Apollo tires, MRF, they all have the same technology. So that whole thing that we are better than others doesn't work anymore. You don't have a product advantage. We are all similar. So the only advantage you have is how can you make people feel that this product is better. And you can only do that if you innovate. And forget this, these are all again for students. I make a point, say, we all strive to belong. If you're a Rotarian, you want to belong to a Rotary club and dress like everybody else, behave like everybody else. And you do that all the time. You go and work in a university, you want to dress like other students, you want to behave like other students, and that's the wrongest thing to do. I use a phrase saying unbelong, don't belong. Do something different, stand out. And that's what works in this. I'll give you an example. At a very young age, I realized that no matter how rich I become, I can afford a Mercedes, I can afford a BMW, I can't afford a Rolls Royce. A second-hand Rolls Royce costs about, I think, 7-8 crores. I said, I'll never afford a Rolls Royce. In fact, the closest I've got to a Rolls Royce is once I was invited to the governor's house for a party, and they had parked Lord Mountbatten's Rolls Royce outside. And no one was allowed to go near that. But the Havaldar who was guarding it, he had seen me in some Marathi movie. So he said, Jaldi se aake ek photo le lo koi dekhne ke pehle. So I managed to stand near the Rolls Royce and I took a picture touching a Rolls Royce. That's the only time I've touched a Rolls Royce. So I said, if I can't afford a Rolls Royce, if I buy a Mercedes, it won't help because thousands of people have Mercedeses. So how can I unbelong and do something different? So I went and bought an auto rickshaw. I bought an auto rickshaw from Poisser Bus Depot, second-hand auto rickshaw for 17,000 rupees. I painted it silver. I put an acrylic top on it. I bought a Maruti chair from Chor Bazaar, put that in the front. And I have a house at Worli. So I got a Harley Davidson sticker made and called it Worli Davidson and put that on the sticker. And I had a license. I could take it anywhere. I didn't have the Mahim restriction. I could take it to Malabar Hill where I had a house. I could go anywhere. I'll tell you an interesting thing. Once, at the Navy Nagar, where the senior naval and army officers stay, they have a beautiful hall, an auditorium. And every year they have what they call Admiral Soman Memorial Lecture. And they call an outside speaker to talk to all the senior armed forces people. So one year they called me. And they said, Sunday morning show, you are the speaker. 10 o'clock the function starts. I said, don't worry, I'm always early. I'll reach there at 9:30. So they said, no, you can't do that. We have a protocol. When the admirals and their wives and the generals and their wives, they're all together, they're having coffee, we bring in the guest with 2 motorcycle riders heralding him in. So where are you coming from? I said, I'm coming from Chembur. So they said, you wait at Regal Theatre, we'll send our riders there. So I went in my rickshaw. And I called him up, Commander Vasan, I remember his name. I said, Commander, I'm here. He said, my riders are waiting there. Which car are you in? I said, I'm in a rickshaw. He said, no, sir, don't joke. I said, no, I come in the rickshaw. I can see your riders. So I waved at them. I went for that function with 2 uniformed motorcycle naval riders with those white motorcycles with those flags flying and me with the rickshaw at the back. But when I finished my talk, I had to wait there for an hour and a half because everybody wanted to take a picture in my rickshaw. And they are defense people. They are very disciplined. So they all waited in the queue. And the general would come to me and say, may I take a picture in your rickshaw? And then he would sit in the front, his wife would sit at the back. Then his wife would sit in the front, he would sit at the back. And I said, if I had a Rolls Royce, they wouldn't have done it. But for a rickshaw, I had to wait there for an hour and a half. And that is how belonging and unbelonging helps you. This is a very interesting slide I have, how advertising works if you can appeal to your heart and not your head. And this is an exciting ad I had found. On that side is a young boy hitching a ride on the road. And he's got a board which says, to Jacksonville. And chances are nobody will stop for him because you don't know who he is. He could be a mugger, he could be a thief, he could be anybody. Why should I stop for him? Now the same boy, without changing his clothes, just changes the words on the board that he's carrying. Instead of saying to Jacksonville, he says, to Mom's for Christmas. I'm going to my mother's house for Christmas dinner. Every car would stop for him because they say, well, his mother must have made dinner for him, and if I don't give him a lift, he'll be late for the dinner. Just by changing the appeal to an emotional appeal, this boy would get a lift. And this is how advertising always works. Appeal to your heart, not to your head. And all the campaigns, all the products that are successful have always done this. We'll just skip this because these are for students. So now, David Ogilvy is a famous name. You must have heard of David Ogilvy. The agency Ogilvy is named after him. He made a statement. He wrote a fantastic book called Confessions of an Advertising Man. And that he made a point in one chapter that when you're passing on a road, nobody is interested in looking at a hoarding outside. Because they're busy on their laptops, they're talking on their phones, whatever it is. No one is interested in looking at a hoarding that is outside unless you can create what he called a visual scandal on that hoarding. And he gave an example. He gave 3 photographs. He said, this is how a visual scandal can be created without spending too much money. This was done in Paris. I don't think it can be done in any other country. He said on one day on a street in Paris, this hoarding appeared. A girl in a 2-piece bikini. And in French it said, on 2nd September, the top goes off. And David Ogilvy writes that people who had no business to be on that road also must have made a point to drive on that road to see what happened on 2nd September. And on 2nd September, the top had gone off. And the line said, on 4th September, the bottom goes off. And Ogilvy makes the point, people must have taken leave to go on that road to see what happens. And on 4th September, the bottom had gone off, the lady had turned, and it was an ad for an advertising agency, and the line was, we keep our promises. If we say we'll do something, we will do it. And Ogilvy writes that in a spate of 4 days, they made that point so effectively. And that's how advertising works. How can you communicate something that appeals to people? Now, every city in the world has a British Council office. And they always have an office, and they say, you come to us, we have part-time and full-time courses. Because if you don't know English, people will think you're stupid. So you must know how to write correct English and read correct English. And we'll teach you. Now, instead of spending millions of dollars on advertising, they said they got a few photographers and say, go and shoot wrong English in use wherever you find it. And lots of photographers went, they shot lots of pictures and came back. They made a series of about 10 ads. I'll show you 3 of them. It was an award-winning campaign. The first one said, Hotel Pierre, please keep your values at the front desk. What they meant was valuables, but the guy didn't know how to write English. So and it said, by order, come to British Council, we'll teach you how to read and write correct English. The second one was for a garden where women weren't allowed. Only men were allowed. Must be in Afghanistan or something, I don't know where it is. But the guy who wrote that board didn't know English. So he said, warning, it is forbidden to enter a woman. Instead of saying no entry for women, and it said, improve your English, come to us, we'll teach you how to read and write correct English. The third one was for a restaurant, which said, we pride ourselves on the quality control. Whatever we serve has been completely tested. But the guy who wrote that board didn't know English, so he said, Papa's Cafe, the manager has personally passed all the water served here. What he meant was he inspected the water, but he didn't use the correct word. Now, I think one country that does not have a British Council office is Pakistan. Because my counterpart, when I was heading Publicis India, my counterpart in Pakistan sent me some pictures from Pakistan. This one said, on top there, it said, Mangopi River is inhabited by crocodiles. Swimming is prohibited. Survivors will be prosecuted. Then this one was at a lift. It said, press up to go up, press down to go down. And this one said, before you enter the lift, please make sure that the lift is present. So Pakistan, I don't think, had a British Council. Now we'll skip these because it'll take too much time. Now, a very interesting happened. Years ago, Dr. Pasricha was the commissioner of traffic in Mumbai. I don't know if any one of you knew. He's a guy who had stopped at no right turns at signals. He was the guy who had done that. So he came to our office, agency office, and said, we have a problem in Mumbai that a lot of people spit on the walls outside societies or urinate on those walls. Now, some societies have started painting God's pictures on the walls, so they'll stop doing that. And we can't have the whole of Mumbai with God's pictures on walls. So we want to put these hoardings. This is the message we want to display. यहाँ थूकना और पेशाब करना मना है या गंदगी करना, दंड 5,000 रुपये या कैद by order. Please put this on hoardings. So very humbly I told her, sir, it's a nice message. But in every human being, every grown-up person, there's a child inside that person. And if you tell a child not to do something, that's the first thing the child will do. If you say, if you do this, we'll punish you, that's the first thing the child will do. So I said, if you say, by order, we'll punish you, how many policemen do you have to check who's doing what? Somebody will say, okay, let's see how many cops you have to catch me. I'll urinate on this wall. Catch me. And you can't do that. I said, let's change the message. So this is what we did. We said, "यह गधों की पेशाब करने की जगह है." So we said, let's put this as a hoarding. Let somebody urinate there. Somebody will click a picture and he'll never do it again. And I said, this is how. Now, after we put this in about some 20 hoardings, we put this up. After which Pasrisha got transferred. Not for this hoarding, for some other departmental things. But this is how it works. Now think of it this way. If you see a board on the road which says, please drive slowly. How many of us drive slowly? We'll say, okay, nobody's crossing. We can't see anybody, so let's drive fast. But suppose you want people to drive slowly. Then you don't write a board which says, please drive slowly. You write a board which says, attention, beyond this point you may encounter nude swimmers. And people will say, nahi yaar, likha hai to koi aata hoga yahan pe, na, what's the hurry? So forget speeding, you'll have a traffic jam because everybody will wait to say, if they've written nude swimmers must be passing, why will they write a board like this? So they'll wait there. No, if you want people to behave in a certain way, don't tell them what you want to tell them. Tell them what they would like to hear and act on. So by just changing messages, this is how it works. Now let's skip this. This is another one. Now I have advertised for Tatas. I have advertised for all the tea brands of Tatas. I have launched Tata Coffee, Tata Tea, Tata Tetli, Tata Salt, the Namak ko Tata ka, Tata Namak, all those campaigns. And when we were working for Tatas, we realized one thing, that each company has a certain image. Tatas have the image that you can trust their products. So in an ad, we just say a Tata product that makes people feel that this is one product we can touch, you can trust. Like Pepsi has an image that they are always making fun of Coke. So each product, each company has an image, and you have to go, every ad must go as per the image that you have. Now, if tomorrow Tata's start doing some funny ads, people won't believe it because Tatas have always done very dignified advertising. So they don't get into making jokes. They had a thing of that, Sirf Utho Nahi Jago Re, which was a very rousing campaign. So Tatas are known for that. Now, Playboy magazine is not just a magazine which had nude women. They had a whole empire. They had ties and they had clubs and they had cufflinks and all kinds of things. They were launching men's underwear. No, Playboy is known for that little risk kind of image that they have, nudes and things like that. So they couldn't do a kind of thing that a jockey does, healthy, comfortable underwear or liberty underwear. They had to do something which was as outrageous as the magazine. So this is the ad they made. There's nothing wrong said in this. If you had something in mind, that's your problem. But they didn't say, there was not a single word here that was wrong. But that went with the image of the Playboy magazine. That's how it worked. And this is how humor works. This is a thing for a hair transplant aimed at executives. So they said, avoid the coming recession. And they show you a headline receding. Then one guy had no money for a model, a haircutting salon in New York. So without paying for a model, they put the photograph of the world's most intelligent man, Einstein, who didn't have a great hairstyle. And they said, a bad haircut can make anyone look dumb. And they put Einstein's pictures. And it worked because it was creative. Now I'll show you one interesting one. I'll skip these because I will take too much time on this. I'll just come to what would interest you. Here's a thing called Orion binoculars, which wanted to say that we have very powerful binoculars. Now, instead of writing a long copy, what they did is they put 3 pictures. One, 100x, you can see the moon. 200x, you can see the American flag on the moon. And 400x, you can see made in China. In the American flag. No words, just 3 creative pictures, but to show you how powerful our binoculars are. You can see such minute details with our binoculars. And this is creative. I'll show you something interesting. This was an ad that appeared in Britain for a butter product, which said, welcome back to butter. Butter has no more calories than margarine. Now, I personally feel as an advertising agent that I've spent so many days and so many years working in campaigns, this is the wrongest thing to do. To put a half-clad woman to sell your product doesn't need creativity. Your local pan shop can, Sharma Pan Bhandar can put a bikini-clad woman and say Sharma Pan Bhandar and people will see it. But then you don't need to be creative. If you have to use a half-clad woman to sell your products, you don't need to be in advertising. Now, I'm not saying it because I am a supporter of women's causes. I'm not. I personally firmly believe that in Mumbai, women have it far better than us men. I'll give you an example. Suppose on Sunday, the electricity in my building goes off. There's no fan, no AC, nothing. So I go to my terrace, take off my clothes, and I'm lying, not troubling anybody. I'm lying on my own terrace without clothes. In the next building, if a woman goes to the terrace at the same time, I don't know why women go to terraces in the afternoon, but if she goes to the terrace and she sees me lying there without clothes, she can phone up the police and have me arrested for indecent exposure. And my life is over. People say he didn't look the type, but you know what he was doing on a Sunday afternoon? He was lying on his terrace without clothes. My life is over. The following Sunday, if in that lady's building the lights go off, and she goes to her terrace, takes off her clothes, and she's lying there, and I go to my terrace and look at her, again she can phone up the police and have me arrested for being a peeping Tom. So both ways, men don't win. So when I say I don't use half-clad women in advertising, it's not because I support women's causes. I had the great fortune of working for a brilliant brand called Amul. And whenever I talk of Amul, I always say that whatever Amul was, is, and will be in future, the 99% credit for that goes to a man called Dr. Kurian. He was the world's best client. He called us and said, I understand nothing in advertising. I understand milk and milk products. Don't show us what you do. He's the only client in the world who said, I'll pay for everything, don't show us what you do. So we could do what we wanted. If you were sitting in the evening like this and if there was a cricket match going on and Virat Kohli, that time there was Sunil Gavaskar, he scored a century, I could think of a line. I would tell my artist, draw this picture, tell the media guy, put a scaffolding on the hoarding here at Marine Drive, and overnight paint it. So tomorrow morning, before you read in the papers that Sunil Gavaskar had scored a century, there would be a joke on an Amul hoarding on that. And people couldn't believe how it happened. It happened because we had a client called Dr. Kurian, who said, don't show us. Do what you want to do. So at the end of the year, I would go to him with an album saying, sir, this is what we did for you the previous year. I'll show you a few examples of Amul. When Anup Jalota was ruling the whole thing, we said Amul Parotha, the Bhojan king. Then there was a time when central government announced a 7-day week, a 5-day week. So we did a hoarding which said, what do government employees still do 7 days a week? Eat Amul. Now, this hoarding went up. I met a very senior executive from a multinational company at Bangalore airport. He came and said, you know, Bharat, that new hoarding is damn good, but not many people have got the real meaning in this. And I said, yeah, what's the real meaning that you've got? He said, you've written the words, eat Amul under the table. These government employees, they always eat under the table. No, that was not our intention, very honestly. The artist must have found that space, so he wrote it there. But I couldn't tell him that time. I said, very smart, not many people have got this. But no, years later, I can admit that was not in our minds. That was just the artist's way of putting it. Every year, I used to do hoardings for Ganpati, 10 days of Ganpati. Now, this is not the hoarding that I'm going to talk about. It was an identical hoarding like this. The line was, Ganpati Bappa more ghya. The girl had a slice of butter on a plate. Ganpati had other things and a slice of bread in his hand. And the line was, Ganpati Bappa more ghya, take more. This hoarding went up and we got a 28-page letter from a lawyer in Mumbai. He said, I am a regular consumer of Amul butter, but your latest hoarding has hurt my religious feelings. Because in Hinduism, he said, you can't show a god holding bread in his hand. Because in the olden days, Christian missionaries used to throw a piece of bread in the well. And if you drank water from them, they said you are converted to Christianity. So by showing our God holding a slice of bread in his hand, you have hurt my religious feelings. So in protest, I'm writing to inform you that I have stopped eating Amul butter from today. Then he added a proviso. But if you give me a promise that you will never repeat this hoarding, I may reconsider my decision. Now we never repeat hoardings. I said, why tell him we never do it? So I wrote a nice small letter to him saying that, sir, you know, we have different gods. Now Ram is a frozen murti. It's Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Hanuman. That's frozen. You don't change that. See, Krishna is Radha Krishna. But Ganpati is a fun god. Ganpati is a cricketer. He plays the guitar, he plays the sitar, he dances, he does everything. But if it has hurt your feeling, I give you my personal word that I'll never repeat this hoarding again. I sent that letter to him. He sent me a 32-page letter. I think lawyers can't write briefly. They can't say, "Theek hai, okay, I agree with you, I disagree with you." He went through the whole thing again. He said, "I refer to my earlier letter dated so-and-so in where I had mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Thereafter, I refer to your reply to me dated so-and-so, in which case you've given me a personal assurance you'll never repeat this hoarding again. So on the basis of your assurance, I am happy to inform you that I have started eating Amul butter again." So we got that one consumer back. So this year I said, let's not take chances. So the visual was Ganpati had nothing in his hand that he shouldn't have. The girl had nothing on her plate that there was not even a butter on her plate. And the line was, "Ganpati Bappa more dya. I have an empty plate, give me more." So this hoarding, I said, no, this can't get us into trouble. This hoarding went up, and the Amul Mumbai office got a call from somebody who said, "I'm calling from the Shiv Sena Shakha of Chowpatty. If you don't remove this hoarding in the next 48 hours, we'll burn it down." So they called me up and said, "Look, we've got a threat from Shiv Sena Shakha Pramukh, so we change it." I said, "No, let's not be in a hurry. Let's talk to somebody senior in Shiv Sena." So I didn't know anybody in Shiv Sena that time. I know everybody now. I didn't know anybody that time. So I got a list of all the senior leaders. There was Manohar Joshi, Sudhir Joshi, and Pramod Navalkar, and all kinds of people. So none of them were in town. So in desperation, I phoned up Balasaheb Thackeray. And I said, "Sir, will you give me an appointment to come and meet you?" He said, "Yeah, come to Shiv Sena Bhavan tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. So I took a print of this hoarding. I went to meet him. And I said, "Sir, my name is Bharat Dabholakar. I do these hoardings." He said, "Oh, you write these hoardings?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm very proud that a Maharashtrian is writing this." But he said, I'm a cartoonist myself. I'm a huge fan of Amul butter. I don't think anybody from Shiv Sena will threaten it. But if you're worried, I'll phone up the Chowpatty Shakha Pramukh and tell him to give protection to this hoarding." So I came to the office and I said, I spoke to Balasaheb, and he said, "Nobody from Shiv Sena will do it, but he'll tell the Shakha Pramukh to give protection." But he said, "But Shakha Pramukh has called us and said he'll burn it down." So we had a long discussion. And at the end of it, I said, "Okay, let's decide this. Let's keep the hoarding on. And let's hope somebody burns it down." What will happen? In the next 15 minutes, Rajdeep Sardesai, Barkha Dutt, everybody, they'll rush to this, take pictures of the burnt hoarding. For the next 10 days, there'll be nothing on television except how we are getting insensitive. I said, they'll call me for an interview, they'll call Dr. Kurian. I said, we don't have that kind of money for advertising. We'll get so much free publicity. So instead of 10 days of Ganpati, I kept that hoarding on for 20 days. If I was not in the office, I would call up and, "Kisne jalaya kya?" And they said, "Nahi sir, abhi bhi hai." So after 20 days, it was too sort of outdated, so I removed it. But from that year, till I handled Amul butter, I never did a hoarding on Ganpati. Because I think we are getting oversensitive about religious things. We can't make any light remark on Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, nothing. And with social media, everything can be misrepresented. So I said, let's stick to safer topics. So we stuck to sports. So we stuck to, when Ramayana was going on, we said, ravenously hungry, eat Amul. Then when US Open was on, and we used to these strikes, Bharat Bandh traffic, so we said US Open or Bharat Bandh, Amul is always on top. Then PT Usha had done very well in the Olympics. So we said at the end of a gloomy night, there's Usha, and time for Amul. Then Maradona was the star of a World Cup football. So we said, Marad hona to aisa hona, butter hona to aisa hona, but Amul hona. So we stuck to sports, which never got us into trouble. Then we did, when Paolo Rossi was another star in football, so we said Paolo Rossi, with Italy, Butterly, Amul. So we kept on doing this. The first time we went for a one-day match to Sharjah and lost. We said it was Sharjah, boys, not Harjah. Amul butter. Then skip these. Then there was a time when in the Pakistan series, there was a cricketer called Zaheer Abbas, who used to score a century in every inning that he played against us. So I did a hoarding which said Zaheer Abbas and have some utterly Amul. And you wouldn't believe this hoarding went up and there was a match in Karachi and Zaheer got out of 14 runs. So we put a banner on the hoarding saying, "Thank you Zaheer for listening to Amul and getting out." But this is how it worked well because we had a complete free hand to do what we wanted. Nobody interfered. This is an interesting case that when Raj Kapoor passed away, we said, let's not make a joke about this. Raj Kapoor was known as a joker. Everybody is famous. And a joker is somebody who makes you laugh even if he is unhappy himself. Even if he is crying, he makes you laugh. So we said the biggest tribute to Raj Kapoor would be to show the Amul butter with the person, the boy, as a joker with that Raj Kapoor's famous pose, with tears in his eyes but a fixed smile on his face. And this hoarding went up and we won an award in every category that we entered this hoarding in. Now the good thing was that Amul butter hoarding had won an award. The bad thing was that I would spend, in a whole year, I would write some 40 clever lines, and finally the hoarding that wins an award has no words on it. But this is how advertising works. And do we have more time? Can we show a film? Can we? Let me, we always hear about when we are doing plays, there are lots of funny things happen. That people forget their dialogues, people forget their costumes, and in every play, Marathi, Gujarati, English, we always have this problem that some senior artist forgets his lines. But I'll give you two instances which are not funny, and that shows you how theatre keeps your mind active. We were doing a play called It's All Yours Janab, which was the first English play ever done in India, which was an adaptation of a Marathi play called Tuza Hai Tuza Pashi by P.L. Deshpande. And we had a very senior actor in it called Rajadyaksha, who should do the main role. It was a 3-act play, which we had Shahnaz Patel and Harish Patel and Mohan Bhandari acting in it. I was the writer-director, I was doing a small role in that. And in the second act, the guy who was doing Rajadyaksha, who was doing Kakaji's role, would go for a shikar at the beginning of the second act, and about 15 minutes later, he would come back and join the act again. We were performing in Pune, full house. Pune Women's Council had sponsored the show. All important people from Pune in the audience. And the second act started, Rajadyaksha went backstage, and Mohan Bhandari came running to me and said, Bharat, Rajadyaksha is not feeling well and he has fallen down. I said, maybe he's getting an asthma attack or something, maybe he has that pump, just check it out. He said, no, there's something more serious. So the sponsor lady was standing next to me and I said, look, can you get a doctor? She said, yeah, we have all the big doctors of Pune in the audience. So she called one of the guys. Show was going on. Shahnaz and people are on stage acting. The doctor came back and said, he's got a cardiac arrest. I phoned up Ruby General Hospital. They've sent an ambulance. So we didn't know what to do. There was 2 acts still left. Full house. They were loving the play. That was my first play. So I asked a senior actor, I said, what do we do? He said, 2 ways. You can either go and say, this has happened, we cancel the show. They'll understand. But they're enjoying it. You've written the play. Do you remember the lines? I said, yeah, I remember the lines, but I can't act as well as he does. So they said, don't have a choice. You go and do this role. So as that guy was being taken on a stretcher, he had a French beard like this, so we removed the beard, we removed his costume. I wore those clothes. I put on the beard, and I came, without stopping the play for a second, I came on the stage and finished that entire show like this. And at the end of the show, they realized that something had gone wrong. A new guy had come and done this role. But at the end of the show, when I told them this is what had happened, that this guy got a heart attack and he was taken to the hospital and we did the show, they said, we've heard that the show must go on, but we've never seen something like this happening. That people didn't stop, didn't inform us, didn't drop the curtain for a minute and say, give us a little time to change. You just continued seamlessly. And this is how theatre works. This is how theatre, I always tell people when I meet youngsters, get into theatre not because you want to act, but it tells you how to be always alert about what you can do. You'll always have problems. When we go and do a presentation, we have a problem. Something doesn't work. You have to have a mind to think of something else. I'll give you one more example. We were doing a play called Bottoms Up. Again, the same Bottoms Up, but a different version. We did lots of versions of Bottoms Up. And that time there was a singer who had come from England called Apache Indian. I don't know if, and he had his famous song, Chok De. Very famous song. So we had done a takeoff on Apache Indian and we called it Chapati Indian. And I had done a song called Chakke. So we had this senior actor with us called Madhav Pradhan. He used to act in Gujarati plays, Chitkar and these plays he had acted in. Now he had some heart problems, so we had taken him off the play. The doctor said, don't make him strain and things. Then he would phone me up every morning and said, you know, Bharat, if I die, I'll become a ghost and come and sit on your head. because you've removed me from the play. I said, I haven't removed you from the play. I said, the doctors have said that you can't do this. Then I went and met the doctor. I said, can he act? He said, yeah, but don't make him strain. Don't make him drive around if it's too far away. So we said, fine. We had a show at Bhaidas Hall in Parla. So we told Madhav, you'll come with us, we'll take you there. Heavy rains going on, full house. And the last act in the play was Tanaz Karim, that time Tanaz Irani. She would go and announce different songs. So the first song was this Chapati Indian. So Madhav would come as Chapati Indian, and Arshad Varsi, who was a dancer in my play, and Luke Kenny, who was a dancer, they would come dressed as chakkas in saris. And then he didn't sing, it was a recorded song, and the chakka song would go on. And it was the most topical song, because Apache Indian had just performed the week before. So everybody knew that song. All Channel V, MTV, they used to all keep on playing that song. So Madhav finished that song, and 1,000 people, 1,200 people, which is the capacity of Bhaidas, I think, they kept shouting, once more, once more, once more. So I said, don't be stupid, you can't do once more. He said, Madhav said, Bharat, I've worked for 40 years in theatre. Actors don't get once more, singers get once more. Let me do it. I said, Madhav, you haven't sung that song. Somebody else has sung that song. You're just standing there. Arshad Varsi and Luke are dancing. He said, Nahi, Bharat, but I've got once more. Let me do it. And people wouldn't stop shouting once more. So I went on the stage and I said, just give us time to rewind the tape and we'll do it again. So I told Arshad, they had taken off their saris and things. So I said, go and wear your saris again. We are doing it again. So the Arshad and Luke ran inside, wore their saris again. Madhav went and I was standing in the wings, and Madhav went and did that song. Meaning he just stood there. He had to just stand and mouth the words. He finished that song. People were again shouting once more. So I said, don't be stupid. We can't do it 3 times. Madhav, I'm waiting in the wings. Madhav comes to me with this broad smile on his face and says, Bharat, can you believe this? After 40 years in theatre, for the first time, got a once more, yeah? And he collapsed in front of me. And we picked him up. We didn't know what to do. It was raining outside. Our cars were parked right at the back. When we come for a play, we come early. So our cars are always parked at we are the first cars in the auditorium. And other visitors' cars come later. Our cars couldn't be taken out. The show was still going on. There were 3 other songs to be done. We picked him up. We couldn't get a cab. We took a cab, went to Cooper Hospital, took him there. He was dead on arrival. And the doctor said, he's dead on arrival, inform his family. Now his family stayed at Cuff Parade, so we phoned them up, no mobile phones that time. And we said, he's not well, please come. And we were sitting in the Cooper Hospital for the family to come. And this guy came and sat next to, he was the inspector of Ville Parle. He came and said, Mr. Dabholakar, you are aware that if a death happens outside, there's always a post-mortem, right? I said, yeah. But he said, I can take care of that. I'll tear the papers, admission papers and things, so you can take the body home. You don't have to do a post-mortem. So at 2:30 in the night, he was sitting with me. I thought he wanted some money or something. So I said, thank you very much for doing this for us. Is there anything I can do for you? He said, no, I'll tell you why I'm doing this for you. He said, my wife and I weren't getting along, and we were planning to go for a divorce. And somebody sent us 2 tickets for your play. So we came to see the play. And after many years, we laughed together. You know, when you're with your husband or wife and something funny happens, you look at the person and say, see, this is how you behave or whatever. He said, we did after 10 years. So we told each other, let's not be in a hurry to divorce. Let's give it a chance. And I owe that to you. It's because of your play this happened to us. So I'm doing this for you because I owe it to you that you may have saved our marriage. So this is what theatre does. It gives you the kind of experiences which in real life you'll never get. Things going wrong, all kinds of things happen. Then we talk about films. Somebody just mentioned about films. So I'll tell you, I wasn't interested in getting into films. I was very happy in advertising and theatre. One day, Shah Rukh Khan phoned up and said he had seen one of my plays, and he said, Bharat, I'm doing a film called 1 2 Ka 4. And there's Jackie, who's a friend of yours, and Juhi Chawla, and there's me. Would you like to act in it? And I said, yeah, but I said, if it's in Mumbai, I can act because I have an agency running. He said, no, the shooting will be in Mumbai only, you come. Now you must see this, we were all commandos. Shah Rukh is a commando, I am a commando, Jackie is a commando, Juhi had a double role, so she's also one role, she's a commando. So my debut scene was that we've got some consignment of drugs. And we are commandos who are weighing it and stacking it in our godown. So there's Jackie, who was our boss, sitting someplace, and Shah Rukh and me. And there was the clerk of our department. He's sitting there, and Shah Rukh passes a bag of drugs to me. I weigh it. That guy says, "Kitna wazan hai uska?" So I say, 12 kilo. My debut dialogue in Hindi film industry was 12 kilo. So he said, "Kitna wazan hai?" I said, 12 kilo. I thought that was pretty good. The director came running and said, "Bharat, there's one thing I forgot to tell you, that ye jo clerk hai na, he's having an affair, which you are aware of. So whenever you talk to him, na, you talk to him as if, तेरे घर पे आके बताऊं क्या तेरे बीबी को?" No, I thought like a writer. So I said, "So should I say, सिर्फ इसका वजन बताऊं या घर पे आके और भी कुछ बताऊं?" He said, "No, sir. You have to say 12 kilo only. But ये दिमाग में रख के बोलना." Now, how do I keep in my mind that you're having an affair? I'll come and tell your wife one day. So I looked very confused. So Shah Rukh said, "Bharat, there's a trick to this. Tell them 2 minutes dena, sir." And then you pretend to think. So if you stand there and say, and then you say, "Acha, sir, I'm ready now." So I thought and I said, "Sir, I'm ready now." So he said, "Okay. कितना वजन है इसका?" I said, 12 kilo. देखा ना आपने मन में देखा तो perfect shot आ गया. So that day I realized it's very easy to act in Hindi films. You don't need too much brains. You can do what you want, you know. And no film runs because of me. No film flops because of me. I'm there incidental, so it doesn't matter. I just get bit roles. I've done Hindi films, Marathi films, Tamil films with Rajnikant, Telugu film with Nagarjuna, Malayalam films, even a Bhojpuri film. A Bhojpuri film I did on demand. I wanted to do a Bhojpuri film because they're the craziest film in the world, Bhojpuri films. And they have the biggest market. So I did a film called Barsat, which was shot some outside Mumbai for about 5 days. So I went for the film. A friend of mine was directing it. No, I wasn't the main bad guy. I was some secondary bad guy. So in that Barsat, the whole film was almost shot in Barsat. The name was Barsat, so we were shooting all scenes in Barsat. So one guy came and started beating me up. So I called the director. I said, "Why is he beating me up? Who is he?" He said, "He's the hero." I said, "He's the hero?" I said, "Yesterday there was some other hero." He said, "No, you don't know the story." He said, "The first hero, he gets very badly beaten by somebody. He's disfigured, so he goes to commit suicide. So before committing suicide, he goes to a temple, to a Mataji and says, मैं अभी खुदकुशी करने जा रहा हूँ. So one chitti comes next to him, on which there is a plastic surgeon's name with his mobile number. So I said, "वो किसने भेजा चिट्ठी?" He said, "Devi Ma ने भेजा." So Devi Ma actually sends him a chitti with a plastic surgeon's name and number. So he goes and gets the plastic surgery done. So he's now a different guy who was beating me up. This is how funny and great Bhojpuri films were. So I had the last day of shoot. Whole night we shot with rain. And they said, "Sir, you are leaving tomorrow, so let's start early at 7 o'clock, you come here," because I was staying in some other hotel. So they said, "You come here. The other people are staying in this other hotel and we are shooting down there only. So you come, we'll shoot and let you go." So at 7 o'clock I went. Everybody was sitting there in their night clothes, all the staff and everybody. I said, "What happened?" I thought we were shooting at 7. He said, "नहीं sir, एक problem ये हो गया कि रात को हम लोग वो रेन का सीन शूट कर रहे थे. They are supposed to come with a tanker. That guy put that pipe onto the hotel tank. So whole night they used the hotel tank ka pani. They didn't have a tanker. So in the morning they had no water in any of the rooms. So they were all sitting and waiting for some tanker to come and give them water. So they said, "A bit time." It was as funny as that. I love doing films because, you know, as I said, I act equally badly in all films and it still works. And the funny part is to tell you how bad we still are, how backward we still are. That film had a producer who was a young guy. He was, I think, 35, 37-year-old Bhojpuri, Bihari guy. The main actor who was supposed to act in the film is a guy called Khesari Lal Yadav, who's the second biggest star in Bhojpuri. There's a guy called Nirav, I believe, who's the topmost star now. And Khesari Lal Yadav is the number 2 star. So I believe when they were planning the shooting, Khesari Lal phoned up the director and said, "Mera ek problem hai. I can't shoot on the date that you've given me. Can we do it 8 days later?" The director said, "Yeah, fine. I mean, we haven't really planned anything. Aaj din theek hai." The producer, who's a young guy, said, मुझे फ़ोन देना. And he said, क्या प्रॉब्लम है खेसारी लाल? He said, सर मेरा प्रॉब्लम है कि 8 दिन मैं अभी शूट नहीं कर सकता हूँ, 8 दिन के बाद करूँगा. He said, नहीं तुमको अभी शूट करना पड़ेगा. तो he said, नहीं. तो he said, ठीक है उसको निकाल दो फिल्म से. तो he said, sir, he's a star, why do you want to throw him out? You would never believe what he said. A 37-year-old boy, not an old man. He said, मैं एक ब्राह्मण हूँ, वो यादव है. एक यादव ब्राह्मण को ना कैसे बोल सकता है? He threw out a superstar from the film because a Yadav said no to a Brahman. So when we talk of elections, we don't realize sitting in Mumbai what goes on there. You know? You don't realize what kind of odd things are happening in villages and things. This kind of thing still exists. That's why when political parties do campaigns, now I did that, you mentioned that I did Modi ji's line in 2014, Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, which wasn't really a great line, very honestly speaking. Because we didn't even know Modi ji was going to be the Prime Minister, I mean the candidate. So we had written Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, Ab ki baar Jetli Sarkar, Ab ki baar Sushma Sarkar, Jab Jab Congress aayi hai, Kamar Tod Mehengai hai, all kinds of things. I think the good line, which wasn't done by me, was when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was standing for an election. It said, Ab ki bari Atal Bihari. That wouldn't work without Atal Bihari Vajpayee's name. Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, you can change any name. He went to America and said, Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar, and it even worked. Other great line in advertising was, when Jayaprakash Narayan was standing for election, it said, Andhere mein ek prakash, Jai Prakash, Jai Prakash. I think those were great lines. Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar was because of social media and all that, it became famous, and I never got money for that, or the credit for that, but it was a good line. But this is how theatre works, this is how films work, and this is how advertising works. And if you have any questions, please ask me. So once a guy asked me a question, they said, Bharat, you speak at so many functions on different topics. How do you find time for all this? To prepare different speeches? I said, no, yeah, I give the same speech. I show the same slides. He said, different subjects? I said, yeah, whether they call it creativity at the turn of the century, what's happening in advertising, whatever they say, I show the same slides and say the same speech. He's saying, really? What if somebody comes the second time? I said, after hearing me once, nobody ever comes back again. So I'm very safe, so I do the same thing wherever I go. So if anything you want to ask, please ask. If I can answer, I will answer. I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you, when we started Bottoms Up, and I always say this with great pride, that the youngsters that we all started pretty young. A guy like Shamak Davar was a dancer in my play. Yeah? He came to me and said, Bharat, will you give me, Karla Singh was my choreographer. Shamak was just a dancer. He came and said, Bharat, I can sing. Can you give me a song to sing? And he sang a song. And today is Shamak Davar. Javed Jafri was a dancer in my play. He came and said, Bharat, give me one role to act. And he did acting and he became brilliant. Shahid Kapoor was a dancer in my play. Arshad Varsi was a dancer in my play. In about 8 of my plays, Arshad Varsi was a dancer. His wife, Maria, he met during our shows. And the greatest thing of pride to me is all these guys were so talented. They've all gone to places. They've really done well. I've still remained the same way. I still keep on doing plays. We are in fact launching a new play this 23rd of August. We've just come from a rehearsal. I'm doing Nathuram Godse in English. The play that ran for 25 years in Marathi. It was the most volatile play ever done in India. Every show had to have police protection that time, 25 years ago. The bus that was carrying the actors and the set was bombed in Mumbai. The director of the play, who's a dear friend of mine who's passed away, Vinay Apte, he was given a revolver license for self-protection. And still that play ran for 25 years non-stop to full houses. So I thought it's done in Marathi, so Marathi audiences have seen it. I said, I do Bottoms Up and things all the time, funny plays. Let's do something little serious. So I've written this play. It's a 90-minute play, which we are launching on 23rd of August. And it's a bit more balanced play. The Marathi was very one-sided. It made Nathuram into a hero. So we said, we can't decide who's a hero. Let the audience decide who's a hero. So we balance it out. We've got Mahatma Gandhi and his philosophy and things in there. And we are launching it now on 23rd, and we'll hopefully keep doing shows. Paritosh Painter has produced it. And we've got a very good cast. We've got Anant Mahadevan and some very talented actors. And we've got good music. and we are doing some interesting stagecraft on that. The hanging of Nathuram and things. We're actually going to show it.
Just send us the details.
We'll send you the details. You'll see it in your book, my show, and things in any case. I started very young, at the age of 3 or something. I was a child prodigy. No, I'll tell you what, I have nothing to do with advertising. I am a lawyer. I am a full-fledged LLB and a business management graduate. I had nothing to do with advertising. I did my law from government law, and I would have been a lawyer. I'll tell you what went wrong. You know, we had a thing called Mohammedan law, in which, in Mohammedan law, there's a system called mutha marriage, which is a marriage by contract, which means you can marry a girl for 6 months if you want to. It's a contract. All the children conceived during that time are legitimate. At the end of that 6 months, you give her meher and the marriage is dissolved. If you want to extend it, you again extend it by 6 months. So we all loved it. We thought when we grow up, this is how we want to get married. We'll get married for 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Nahi chala to theek hai, it dissolves automatically. So we knew that by heart. The only thing we knew about law was mutha marriage. Every student knew what is mutha marriage. So in the second year, in our exams, we got a thing saying, write a short note on muthavali. I didn't know what that meant. So I said, what could be muthavali? So I said, it must be muthabali. That means the girl who gets married in mutha marriage must be called muthavali. So I wrote 2 supplements on that. That the girl who gets married in mutha marriage is called muthavali and all that. So the professor called me and said, have you read this? I said, no. He said, do you know what this means? I said, no. He said, it's not a girl who gets married in mutha marriage. Muthavali is the head of a religious trust. It's not muthavali, it's muthavli. So he said, this law is a very exact science. You need to study it. Fantasy doesn't work there. So don't be a lawyer. Get into something where your fantasy works. So I said, forget advertising. That's how I got into advertising because of that. So I had nothing to do with advertising. Yeah.
So with this OTT and all, the theatre plays are dying.
Yeah.
We have been very
I'll tell you what happens. Yeah, that's true. But I'll tell you one thing. No medium dies. You know what happens is that when television started, people thought radio will die. The radio hasn't died. And the reason why radio hasn't died is because radio is a passive medium. In my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, my father would switch on the radio. I would be studying, my mother would be cooking, but the radio went on the whole day. It was passive. You didn't have to sit and listen to a radio thing. See, television is active, unless you're sitting in front of the TV set and watching it. So people thought when television comes, radio will go. Radio hasn't gone. People thought press will go. What has happened is, because of OTT platform and the kind of stuff they get on OTT, normal plays don't work anymore. People want to see something which is fantastic. So when they do it in this Nita Ambani center and they get these foreign shows and big sets and things like this, then it works. A normal social play, you say we can get to see this. And then theatre prices are expensive. Like an English play, the prices start from 3,000 rupees. So if a family of 4 coming out, it's about 12,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, 16,000 rupees for 4 people plus food. So it's an expensive thing. For 2,000 bucks, you can see Netflix for a whole year. So it is affecting theatre. Like Gujarati theatre was the most commercially successful theatre. Because all my Gujarati theatre friends, Siddharth Randeria, and told me that what we do is when we launch a play, on the very first day, there are some 200 secretaries of Jain Jagruti Mandal, or Jain Friend Circle. They come and book our shows. So about 500 of our shows are booked on the first day itself. Today when I talk to those guys, they say it's not happening anymore. Now there are not 200 Jain Jagruti Mandals which come and take place. Maybe 50 of them come. So theatre has reduced its appeal. It is working in smaller towns. Mumbai people get enough entertainment, but I think in smaller towns people don't get to see theatre. And if it has some well-known names, then they want to see them on stage. Anupam Kher doing a play, they want to see Anupam Kher. So theatre will not die, but we have to think in terms of what can we do that is different from what they've so far seen. Siddharth Randeria, all of you must be Gujaratis will know Siddharth Randeria. He's a very close friend of mine. So one day I told him, I went and saw a play of his called Lage Raho Guju Bhai. So he said, Bharat, you want to do it in English? I'll give you permission, do it in English. I said, do you want to do any of my plays in Gujarati? He said, it won't work. He said, the bottoms up won't work in Gujarati. Gujarati plays have to have a certain basic things that the husband must make fun of the wife and the mother-in-law. Otherwise, Gujarati plays don't work. He said, you have to have, he said, when I do a play, I have to make fun of my wife, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they'll love it. But if you don't do this play, the bottoms up won't work in Gujarati. So each theatre has its own, what works. Like, Marathi theatre has some different kind of system that works. English theatre, when we did bottoms up, we did lots of other plays that worked. We did Blame It on Yashraj, which ran for the last 10 years. But things are changing fast. You know, people are not coming to see a play unless it has something fantastic. So theatre has to keep that in mind. It has to adapt to changing trends. Then it will work.
Well, Bolu, thank you so much. I don't think I have laughed so much in few months' time. I request Devika Chopra to give a vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Bombay Bayview, I would like to thank Mr. Bharat Dabholakar for his very entertaining, humorous and most riveting talk today. He certainly is such a dynamic and multifaceted personality, and though at the beginning you most humbly stated that you were so nervous to talk, you had us in splits and we were laughing throughout and we were all enthralled. His Burley Davidson is proof of his creativity, innovative mind, and I also want to take a photograph with it. I'm sure many of us would want to take that photograph and post it on our Instagram. And his one line that really touched my heart as a doctor, especially because I also believe in this, is appeal to the heart and not to the mind. I think that is so important for all of us that we get confused with what the image will uphold, but we have to appeal to a person's heart, and that's how the humanity goes forward. So thank you, sir, for this most entertaining, insightful and lovely talk, and all your anecdotes were lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we are so honored and privileged to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
I wish I knew that you were a doctor earlier, because earlier I had done a play called Mind Your Stethoscope, where we made so much fun of doctors and hospitals. We had all kinds of things happening. That in the hospital there's a board which says, special Christmas offer, get one kidney removed, you remove the other kidney free of cost. You get a bypass done, we'll give you 20% off on circumcision, and those kinds of things. And we continuously made fun. We made a film, that guy goes and says, sir, how much will my operation cost? And he said, it'll cost about 5 lakhs. He said, 5 lakhs total? He said, no, 5 lakhs plus nurses' charges, parking charges, this charges, room charges, depending on which room. So about 18 lakhs. He's saying, tell me honestly, is this operation really necessary? The doctor says, of course it's necessary. The patient says, for me? He says, not for you, for me. I still have to pay installments on my Alibag farmhouse and my daughter's education. So what used to happen is, every time I had to go to a doctor, and if they said, I've seen your play, I used to get very worried, because if that chap doesn't have a sense of humor, he'll treat me wrongly. So I would always say, sir, all in fun, there's nothing serious about this. So I used to get very worried about doctors.